Hold on.
Are we recording?
Everybody slide this glass panel towards me and Luke.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Every time.
I don't want it.
Push it back.
Okay, this is episode 33 of the Votary podcast about Squid Game. This was per Falin's request. Well, just that we watch it was your request.
Yes.
So I had heard from a friend and saw it advertised, and then you mentioned it, and then I think someone else said something. Usually if there's like 3 or 4 recommendations for the same thing in a row, I'm like, okay, I'll at least give it a shot.
Yeah.
I've definitely had plenty of other recommendations I ignore, but this seemed like a good one to watch. And then it became a phenomenon.
Yes.
I will say, I feel like Falin was really on the...
Are you doing the Squid Game soundtrack right now?
Falin was really at the forefront, I feel like, of
Thank you.
the Squid
agree.
Game. You came before the hype. Like, you came into work one day, you were like, there's this show, Squid Game. I watched it, and it's awesome. You guys have to see it. And I was all like, what? And then, like,
Falin
a week after
was
that,
a
I started to
hipster.
see memes and things start to percolate and rise to the surface. I was like, oh, there's something happening here. But she was, hipster. She's before it, I think.
You were a hipster before it was cool.
Yes, I saw on TikTok, and it was just this.
Oh, that's actually where I was making a joke
No,
earlier.
I know you were making a joke, that's why I found it funny. It was I saw the scene, the first episode where they're playing red light, green light, and it was just the scene where the old man was like all giddy and happy to like go, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then it cuts to like a bunch of people getting shot in the face, and I was like, I need to see this right now.
Wait, so there was a
is.
TikTok. I didn't realize you could see. There was a TikTok of just that scene.
It was just a small clip.
I wanted this song to be the, like the whole.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
If people have watched the show, which let me just say, if you're watching this or listening, you should probably absorb the show, think about it, then absorb this, because there's just going to be spoilers, and I don't want to sum up it as much maybe as we did with the Green Knight. I just want to assume that everyone's seen it.
I think that's why I'm on this podcast episode, is to give a scene by scene breakdown of the entire season.
I think the time code was 3123, and the frame was a top-down shot of the stairwell.
No, we
like a pastel
open up on a
shot.
black and white scene of a child's playground.
For real though, don't do it.
A play-by-play.
It was so good. Can I confess something?
Yes.
So I watched it in 3 nights.
Because we bullied you into doing it.
I'm pretty sure I did the same.
And then last night, because I knew we were going to be talking about it,
You watched it again.
I watched 3 full episodes last night.
Holy crap!
Wow.
And then I watched the remaining 4 on like 2 times speed. So, and then I would pause it at strategic scenes that I remembered being really significant.
Psychopath.
I did. So I basically ingested the entire season again last night.
Holy cow.
God.
How can you even watch something in 2
You're a
times
madman.
speed?
Did you throw up afterwards?
And now I don't know who I am.
You were really dedicated to that homework.
well,
I do.
so
I actually have notes too that I wanted to talk about.
Well,
I did
so
not
let's-
come as
Me
prepared.
neither.
let's start with that then. What did you get from it the second time?
The most significant, or whether it be significant or like just cool and entertaining journey to me on the second go was the old man. To now knowing who he was, and then rewatching his entire, because the first go around you just think he's like kind of this quirky old guy, and you're not paying attention to him. You're really paying attention to, and anytime I reference a name, I'm going to mispronounce it. So just, number 456, Ji-hoon, the main character. You're kind of really focusing on him throughout. And you really think he's like the primary story, and he is. But the old man's journey, or his role, once you watch it again and know who he is really interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
really
it is.
interesting.
Especially the scene where he's like talking to him and doing the comparison between rich people and poor people. I thought that was beautiful. That was so beautiful.
At the end, or
yeah, it was like the last episode.
Yeah. No, yeah. I thought you meant that he was having a conversation. What are some other moments early that stand out differently because
I'll give it to you.
Spoiler alert, twist at the end.
Cody's ready.
I'll give it
The old man.
The old man. This is my text to myself.
Was behind the whole
There's
thing.
a lot of
My
notes
text to
there.
myself as I watched it was "Old Man Journey" is the title, and then a bunch of bullets.
Wow.
So the main thing is obviously you have a much deeper understanding of why he looks so damn happy right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you're like
He's not just like, oh, he's a crazy dementia.
he's not confused. He's not there out of desperation like everyone else is.
Yeah.
So he's just like loving the moment, right? He's just like, I'm in the game that I invented, right? And then a couple moments that became very significant on the second watch. The first one was obviously, he's so happy during red light, green light because he's just happy to be there. Then when they vote after red light, green light to continue on or not, he was the deciding vote, remember? Because they voted in opposite order.
Oh, yes.
And he voted no.
Yeah.
And then at first you think like, well, why would this guy vote no? He was saying that he's dying, and Ji-hoon even flashes back to that conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, this guy's got a tumor. Of course he's going to vote to stay. He's got nothing to lose. But he votes no. And my theory as to why he would vote no was that it was pure strategy. So he knows from inventing the game and having through observation, he's probably seen this play out 100 times. He probably knows that more often than not, when people vote to leave, most of them come back and the game continues.
Right.
So he knows he's going to continue to get to play. But he knows if he were to vote yes, he would have a target on his back. Because he would be the deciding vote for all those people who didn't want to stay, had to stay. They would all be after him because they're like, dude, you're the reason we're still here. That's my thinking.
Also, I wonder if it has to do with, because he has this obsession with like the purity and the fairness of the game, and like everyone has to be. He designed it like everyone has to be there by their own will.
Mm-hmm.
So if it comes down to his choice. And
it's an unfair advantage.
Or he, as the creator of the game, can't be the one who's deciding, making everyone stay. So he votes no. So that, but it's probably also what you said.
So it's probably some of that, and also like he knows the game's going to continue, and it was a survival move. Like I don't want to be the guy that made everybody stay who didn't want to stay.
Yeah,
because he knows that when they come back, it's because they truly want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So that was interesting. And then the fact that he encounters number 4, 5, 6 by chance
outside of the game, outside of that market, and they had a few drinks and they had a conversation, and he basically was the reason that 4, 5, 6 decided to ultimately come back.
Yeah.
He's for some reason really wanted him in the game.
He honed in on him from the start as being significant, and I think it's because 4, 5, 6 recognized him, like was kind to him and talked to him and asked him questions and got to know him, and so for one reason or another they formed an early bond, and number 1 was like, I got to make sure this guy comes back. So he went and found him and had a by chance encounter and convinced him to come back. So that was significant. I also think, just from watching it again, it didn't appear that the old man, I think he purposely didn't allow himself to know what the games were ahead of time. I think he was as in the dark as everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't appear like that he knew what was coming when.
Why
you don't think they recycle the games every year?
No.
Why wouldn't he know?
Yeah, because the guys at the end,
the VIPs,
they say, "Oh, are you going to tell us what the games are?"
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I think it was just the impression that I got. I don't have any direct evidence to say like he definitely didn't know, but he could have. He could have.
He talks all about like the joy of the game and of playing and stuff, and I think he'd probably submit himself to that.
Yeah, and we know that the reason this thing exists is because of him, and he never had more fun or felt more alive than when he was a little kid playing games in school. But maybe as I think about this more, maybe he did. It was a note I wrote down that he didn't appear to know like there was no clear evidence that he was cheating or had an advantage that others didn't. And if he did know, he didn't go out of his way to angle, to try to set himself up. Like he wasn't like trying to get the big strong guys for tug of war, or he didn't like aim to get the triangle for the, you know what I mean? So he wasn't doing that. He was just very passive.
He took what did he do? He did the star.
He got the star.
Yeah, he did the star.
Only because the other three were taken.
Yeah. But with tug of war, he was like, "Oh, I'm ready for this."
Well, the tug of war was his whole strategy was so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was so cool.
I was worried that throughout, I right in the beginning, I was like, okay, they're definitely gonna just keep doing like games from our childhood or even from,
Korean culture.
Yeah, like some we might not be familiar with. And I'm like, I'm really going to be mad if they don't explain why. Like, I was really worried, like, right away. I'm like, I hope they don't just end this show with just, like, oh, it's just, like, childhood games, and they never explain the island, and they never, like, I thought it was going to be that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I was actually surprised. Like, I didn't actually see that coming, like, him being kind of the mastermind behind it, which I thought seemed like it. I don't know. It seems like I should have seen that coming because it was like.
Well, they set it up so well that he is dying, which is true, and that he has like a brain tumor, so he has a bit of like it affects his brain where he has like moments of dementia.
Right, and then he even fools 456 with the marble game.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
do you think that was all fake?
Yes. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, we'll get there because
What was all fake?
his act in that.
Well, yeah, he basically calls him out at the end. He's just like he's acting like all innocent, but he knows that he has been fooling him through the game.
Yeah.
And he's like, you've been.
I want to dive into that for sure because I want to hear what
that
you. That
is the most important episode. I feel like, or the most like.
So another
the best one.
Really significant thing that upon rewatching it, I didn't think much of it the first time around. When they manipulate them all into getting into a giant fight, when the bully 101 kills the guy, and then they realize, oh shoot, if you die, and the money comes in. So they orchestrated the whole situation to get them to kill each other in the room. Though, do you guys remember why the brawl ultimately ends?
Yeah,
because of him, because of the old man.
The moment
he says stop.
Yes.
When it was revealed that who he is, so when he sees him in the bed, that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh, like
yeah. So to me,
wait, he
stands up in bed. He's like, stop.
No, but what you're saying when you got to the ending and you're seeing the old man, you're like, oh, it was him the whole time. You thought back to the moment where he stopped the fight. Okay. So you didn't see that coming necessarily, like the twist of him. Yeah.
So knowing that he's the boss man in that moment is so interesting when you think back on it, because like it was Lord of the Flies insanity in there. Everyone was killing everyone. And he was legitimately scared. It was the only part of the games that he wasn't like actually smiling, having a good time.
Yeah.
And he's basically like, this isn't what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. He gets up on the highest point that he can get, and he's looking straight up, and he's screaming, saying, I'm really scared. You need to stop this. If you don't stop it, everyone's gonna die. This is not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then
in that moment, the
front man goes, okay, turn it off. And the first time you watch it, you're like, oh, maybe that was like a moment of empathy that the front man had, or maybe he realized like, yeah, okay, this is enough. It's getting gratuitous.
Yeah.
Or we're actually sacrificing the rest of the game right now by letting too many people die. Whatever. That was the thing. That was what I was thinking at first. But
when he says the line, "Everyone's going to die," and the front man stops it, I viewed it as, well, yeah, then they can't.
Yeah, it can't go
the
on.
Experiment.
Yeah, it's not how it's supposed to end.
I viewed it as that guy's mentality. Like I was sort of piecing together, his character, like as much as you can. Which I'm like, oh, for him, this is all a human experiment.
Yeah.
Like this for him, he's getting something out of this through like rats in a maze type of thing.
But then you realize it was him listening to his boss.
Right.
Which is really interesting. And then
so I just want to point out right now
ahead.
that Jamin has come over to the kitchen and he's checking on cameras and stuff, but he's protecting himself
with headphones on because he hasn't seen.
Nobody is.
See the rest of the
Nobody's
show.
standing by any of the cameras because the rest of our crew doesn't want to know
They don't want spoilers.
what's happening.
We're the
show.
only four who finished the show.
That's how we determine who's going to be in the episode. Who finished it?
The next thing that was really interesting and was after the crazy night of death, they're all
Which one?
the brawl in the room.
Yeah.
You know, they're like all kind of reeling from that, and they're kind of hunched in their little teams all around the room. And 456 goes, "Hey, I think, you know, we might as well get to know each other now, get to know each other's names." And they go around and they all share their names, and they get to the old man, and he starts to act like he can't remember his name. And to me, that I was thinking, well, maybe he's so wealthy that if he told them his name, it might register with them.
You were thinking this in the moment, or you're thinking this in hindsight?
Upon rewatching, I was thinking maybe like it'd be like if he's like, I'm Jeff Bezos, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And then they'd be like, oh wait, I know that name. Like, you know what I mean? So I think he was like in a moment of like, crap. What do I do here?
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
And pretended not to remember his name and you know, leaned on the whole I have a tumor thing.
Yeah.
To get out of that situation.
Which he clearly was actually sick.
Yeah.
Right? Like it doesn't really.
That's the only reason I was
explain that.
questioning the tricking the game at the end with the marbles.
Yeah.
But I think you're probably right about that.
I think he was actually sick, but it's like, well, you can function enough to be pretty clear when it matters, because when the games, it would like, you know, when the games are happening, he's suddenly like, oh, I know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
But why would he? Because he's so passionate about like this is what he wants to do. He wants to play games, and I feel like marbles would be like one of the ones that he would really want to play. So I'm wondering why he wouldn't engage in that.
Yeah, I want to get the last thing I'll say, and then we can talk about that, because my last note was, well, one of the last notes was he's got mad tug of war skills, but then
that's probably the one that's in every year. He's like, gotta have tug of war, guys.
Yeah. But I just thought the juxtaposition from the brawl where they were all mercilessly killing each other to then having to get into teams of 10 and collaborate in tug of war next thing.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
So you think about these people all like talking like, will you be on my team? Will you be on my team? It was like 20 minutes ago. You were probably like, I was like, that is so stark.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even with, is it the marble one where they team in teams?
No,
up too?
he's talking about like when they had to fight in the room all together.
No,
and
I know.
Right
I'm
after
saying,
is the tug of war one.
What's the one where they had to get into teams of two?
Yeah,
and
that was the marbles. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
then it's like the husband and wife, which honestly was an underdeveloped opportunity. I thought.
I really wanted to know how their story was, because that is so interesting that you like genuinely decide to go back into an environment that you already know people are gonna die, and then you're like, me and my spouse.
Yeah.
Like the person I love the most is gonna come with me. That was a weird thing, a weird choice.
Yeah. Well, the whole scene with that husband, like afterwards, after that game, was so intense.
Yeah, when he's like, I just had to play my wife in a life or death.
Yeah.
Situation, and she lost.
Yeah.
Awful.
Like that. I mean, I guess it was sort of
awful.
like just an added element, but I was like, that it could have been from their perspective and probably been like just as interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it would just have been a different amount of tension, different drama. But
Yeah. What the other thing that was really impressed upon me on the second watching was, of the 5 or 6 characters that they really followed, they did a really good job of making you care about each of them. And I think that there's so many layers that that they can expound upon now, with the brother and the frontman, the cop and the frontman being brothers. To me, that was all. I might be wrong. I don't know what's in development or whatever, but I have to imagine that with the success of the show, they're going to do it again. To me, they set that up perfectly for the next season to be centered around 4, 5, 6, the cop and the frontman as the primary storylines.
Yeah.
That was one of the kind of the disappointments of the ending of the show for me. Like, was it the
whole
red
cop, hair?
No, the cop. The cop storyline. Like I was so into that. Like all this stuff with like the inner like ring of workers who were like selling organs and all that stuff, and him trying to figure out who his brother was or where his brother was and everything, and then it kind of just like abruptly came to a stop. I thought that when I first saw that scene, I thought that he survived when he fell off the cliff. Like he shot him in the shoulder, fell off the cliff into the water. I was like, okay, he's gonna come back somehow.
Yeah.
He didn't, but
he's gonna. That's what Cody's theory
there's a
is.
possibility, like if
There is.
But I just felt like with not considering whether it will be continued or not within that one first season, I was a little bit disappointed. It was so stark of like an ending, and it didn't feel like it paid off a whole lot.
Like that storyline didn't pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think that's going to be
at
the center of the next story.
Yeah.
Because we know that 456, who's our hero, he just made a choice, a very big choice at the end, to not go to the U.S. and be with his daughter. Instead, he's gonna fight for justice, basically, to take down this corrupt game.
Mm-hmm.
And the only person that we
So we assume it would be really interesting if he becomes another frontman.
right? But yeah, that's our guess, and the front man's going to be his main target because the old man's dead, and the VIPs seem to just be an accessory to the game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. So my theory on the cop and the brother, well, we know that the brother, the front man, we know that he won the game in 2015.
Well, what was the reveal there for the front? Like, was it just him taking his mask off and like their reactions playing off each other was the reveal?
That they're brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that the let's just follow the cop story. So we get introduced to the cop when 456, upon leaving the game, goes to the cops to report what's going on, and they all think he's crazy. And so he had given them the card and said, look, I even had their card, call them. And of course it didn't work. And he leaves, and the cop is in there, and he catches a glimpse of the card. And it jogs his memory about his brother, seeing that card with his brother a long time ago. And he's on the phone, presumably with his mom, I think, the cop is. And he's like, yeah, I haven't seen him. He disappears on us from time to time. He does this. He doesn't always answer us. I'm sure he'll turn up. I'm going to go to his apartment. And if I don't see him by tomorrow, I'll report him missing. And so obviously we know he's talking about somebody that he cares about, and to someone else who he cares about. So then he goes, and we find out he's at his brother's apartment, and it's the landlord is saying like, yeah, I'll let you in, but you got to pay his rent, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He finds a box with that card in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, shoot, I just saw that with that crazy guy in the station. So he goes back to the station, gets the card, finds out who the guy was, and he encounters 456 in the alley.
You just can't help but give a summary.
I can't. Okay. So long story short,
I watched the whole show, and I'm like, as if I'm watching.
I know. Yeah, all right. So long story short, he gets onto the island by tailing 456 onto the boat.
That was so awesome. That scene where he like goes into the van and everything.
Oh my gosh, that was so cool.
So then he's just trying to figure out what's going on and find his brother. And remember, there's a scene, I think it's after the brawl, where they're all lined up, and he's in his square-faced outfit, and he comes up to 456 and he goes, 456, do you know a man named, and then he gives his brother's name, and then 456 is like, we don't know each other's names, and he's like, okay, and he walks away. So then he eventually breaks into the front man's office, finds the archive room.
Yeah.
And that's when you learn, oh crap, this has been going on for years.
Yeah, he finds all those.
Because we're in the 2020 game, but then he sees decades of prior games, and it's like an annual thing.
Yep.
Then he finds, he's flipping through them all, finds the 2015 one, and finds his brother's name listed as the winner of that year. And so you're like, okay, so he's not in this game. Like, who's his brother? He won. Then finally, the moment at the cliff, he encounters the front man, gets him cornered, and he discovers it's his brother. Now, the reason I think,
and that's that they just literally just exchange glances, and you kind of have to just assume.
No, I think he says something, right?
Well, he says his name, and I think if his name wasn't,
he does.
Yeah. He's
Okay,
like,
that's what I was forgetting. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah. He
what
says
is that?
his-
Yeah,
I don't forget his name, but I'm sure if it was in English, it would have resonated more with us
sure.
than having to read it in Korean. But the reason I think that that's going to be a central story point, and that that relationship between the brothers is going to continue, is because, for one, the frontman was pursuing the intruder the whole time. From the moment they found out that there was an intruder, the frontman's like, we got to catch this guy. But I thought it was significant that the frontman wasn't like, yeah, find him and shoot him, because they just indiscriminately kill everybody in that game. The frontman obviously wouldn't care if they just shot him.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird too.
Unless he knew it was his brother and he was trying to preserve his life.
Yeah. Yep.
And if he didn't know it was his brother, he definitely knew it was his brother when he found the dead body that the cop planted his ID on.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, this is my brother. Obviously, he would know it then. So constantly pursuing, saying, bring him to me alive, bring him to me alive. And then when they're on the cliff, the cop shoots him in the shoulder. And
not the cop. Yeah.
the cop shoots the front man in the right shoulder.
Yeah.
Cody, you look like you're gonna do a reenactment.
Well, I did.
Of the scene.
Because I was dissecting it all last night. So the cop is right-handed, shoots.
Okay, I'm the cop.
Okay, you're the front man.
You're the front man.
The cop shoots him in the right shoulder, kind of like on the top, and he's like, oh, and then remember, all the henchmen bring up their guns in that moment to shoot.
Yeah, and
he goes,
no.
he stops
Yeah,
him. So
yeah.
again, he's preserving his life.
Yeah.
And then the front man's left-handed and shoots the cop and grazed him on the left shoulder, and he falls back on the cliff. And he's obviously alive. There's just no
he's
way.
gotta be.
Because he lands in the water. He kind of looks over the edge.
If he wanted to kill me, he would have done it in the head.
It definitely would make sense that he's alive.
Yeah, or he wouldn't have stopped all these guys from killing the cop a million different ways. So yeah, that's my theory, is that season 2 is 4, 5, 6, and the cop teaming up or something. It's going to be around those 3 characters.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, I mean, there really wouldn't be much else to do if it wasn't centered around that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily care if they make the front man and the cop like a huge part of it. I wasn't like disinterested, but I wasn't as sucked in.
I'd be
to
pretty
that element.
disappointed if they brought back a second season and the cop wasn't alive.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I have a question for
Yes.
all of you. What? I'm sorry. There's a fruit.
Yeah, these flies
There's a
are-
fruit
Flies
fly. I have a question. So, what's like a side character in the games that you found most compelling? That was not like one of the main characters that they told the backstory.
Well, not necessarily a side character. I think that his name is Sang-woo, the Yuhun's
Yeah,
friend.
childhood friend.
Yeah.
childhood
Yes,
friend.
yep.
I thought he's a pretty central character, obviously. But he was one of the most interesting stories to me, I think, of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just to see like how he starts, and it's the classic, like, oh, he starts off with like glasses and you think he's like a nice guy, but then by the end his glasses are off and he's not a nice guy.
Yeah, he's the quiet, intelligent person who is actually the most capable of evil.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
he has like fallen from grace, kind of like he's, and Gi-hun like thinks he's like the best person ever the whole time. And he's like, oh, the smartest guy, like went to this university. He's like talking about, and you see the weight of that on him and the lies that he's carrying with him and how he's tricked his like mother and stuff. And like that just like wears on him. But I wasn't necessarily like, I thought that he was still going to like, he'd be this sort of kind of anti-hero, but I thought he was still going to kind of work together for good with like Gi-hun or something. And
what's crazy about him is that you realize that he was only out for himself right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because
because of the little cookie.
Well, yeah,
little
I
cookie
guess you could say red light, green light. He did help 4, 5, 6. He did say like, you got to get up and you got to go because you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Like he helped him out, and then but the cookie game, he had a little inside knowledge, and he had a flashback of playing that game as a kid, and he took the triangle, and then he almost stopped him from taking the umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally
that is
knew.
like the moment, I think, where his character starts to turn, because you can tell he does care about his team. He does want maybe to help them, but he's like,
he wants to help his team as long as it helps himself.
Yeah.
But then it starts to shift.
Even before that, now that I think of it, 456 asked him, hey, should we all stay together or should we pick different shapes? And even though if he couldn't have been completely sure that that was the game, if he had, and if he really did think it would help, like, if he wasn't completely selfish, he would have said, we should all be triangles.
Yeah.
But instead he was like, no, let's spread out.
Yeah. Something that was interesting to me about that game, and from that point I had like a theory that didn't end up being true, but I thought that this whole thing was going to ultimately come back to Sang-woo and Gi-hoon's childhood. Like it was the person running it was going to be someone from their childhood that like, you know, everything had gone wrong for him in life or something, and like the playground was like the only place where there was like complete fairness and like the best wins and stuff, and or some vendetta that he had maybe against them or something, because he had that flashback to like the playground where that guy was like making those shapes and stuff, and I was like, oh, he's gonna clue into like it's some
it did feel like there was gonna be more ties into the past.
And
kind of glad there wasn't, though. I don't know.
I thought that would have been a really cool, interesting, because like
the ties from the past was the fact that they grew up playing this game and now it's like a life or death situation. That was enough for me. Because when I don't know, when stories like this are, it's everyone you're this person, and then everyone, like
in Lost, not necessarily. Every two characters had some overlap in their past.
Everything ties together too perfectly.
Not like everyone in the. I wasn't thinking like everyone in the game would be like have gone to the same school.
No, but the two of them.
But just like that, this thing would have been going on for years and years, and then they happen to end up in it, and it happens to be this guy from their childhood.
I don't
know, because that scene suggested that for me, and then also, there's also like parts of the game that suggested this kind of like philosophy almost of like equality and fairness. You know, when they discover those guys who were doing the selling the organs stuff and they were cheating with the doctor, they like hang them up and like, we are sorry, the game has been compromised, we apologize, we won't let this happen. Like there's this very strict like ideology behind the game.
Well, the fairness of the game, because he didn't care that they were harvesting organs. He was like, that's fine, go do all you want, but the moment you compromise the game, then I have a problem.
It's like their religion.
What was your side character, Cody?
That's a good question. I do want to ask this question too, that Luke brought it up in my mind, is the very beginning scene of the show, the black and white flashback. Do you think that was them?
That's what I thought.
Or that was man.
Why?
Or do you think it was the old man?
I thought it was the old man playing.
See, when I first saw it, I thought it was Ji-hoon and Sang-woo, and that like tied into everything.
It would make sense. It would make sense either way to me, because
I think the Squid Game is actually like, because my initial thought was like, oh, this is a game that these kids like made up. But I think it's actually a common game in Korea.
I think so too.
Yeah, but at the end where they're playing the Squid Game, it's like sort of like the final. It's like boss level time, you know. The one-on-one, they're flashing back to those black and white sequences.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's trying to tell you like, it's like this is.
Yeah, and he says we used to play. Remember this? We used to play it all the time. Remember what we used to call it when you would cross the neck? Like.
Yep.
So it makes sense that it's both of them. But the thing that makes me think that it was the old man is just the narration of that first scene, where he talks about, I never felt more alive or whatever, or I've never felt more like happy than in that moment.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, that's the mentality of the old man. That's
true.
Because the old man's motivation in life is to find a way to have fun and feel alive again after years and years of unmitigated wealth, basically killing his joy.
Also, I love how when they finally get to the Squid Game at the end, it like starts off with them kind of playing, but then they just end up beating each other and like trying to kill each other. They're not even playing the game.
No. I know. Well, they break all the rules there.
It gets to that. It gets to the point where like that one of them has to triumph.
Yeah.
Well, I originally thought that there could have been multiple winners when the show was first starting, Because they didn't say like one person had to win. They just said that the more people die, the more money you get.
The game was allowing the players to believe that. Did you notice the way that they worded things was very vague?
I think that they were trying to point out that the greed from each individual person as time will wear on will just enhance, and they'll be like, well, why should you have a third of it, or why should you have this? You know,
Which
I
definitely happens.
If I eliminate you, or you just happen to die, that's
but I don't.
for me.
But I don't think the rules of the game are that there's only one winner, because
they don't explicitly say that.
Yeah, but I think that's what happens.
The book that he opens,
Yeah.
it only has one winner each year.
Right, and because the third rule is if the majority of players decide to end the game can end, but then all the money goes to the families of the deceased.
Yes.
So it's not like, oh, let's end it now and the four of us will split the winnings. It's like we end it, we go home with nothing, everybody else gets the money.
Yes,
for their families.
that's right. That's right. And they do say that in the beginning.
They
do.
I want to ask a question, but I guess I should answer yours. I don't know why the guy with the snake tattoo stood out to me. He's like such a typical
The
kind
101.
of like... Yeah, he's just like a typical like gangster, like
bully character,
character who's just out for number one. Yeah. There always needs to be that character, and for some reason he popped in my head when you asked that question, even though he's sort of like predictable.
But he was a good version of that character, I felt like.
Yeah, I don't know. He made it interesting because he literally is just like, I don't care about my gang, you know, and he felt like there were like more layers there, but I really loved the old man character throughout.
He's my favorite.
I was feeling their connection. That was what was getting me most, I think, like emotionally involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in what do they call each other when in the marble game? They're
Gung Boo or something.
Yeah. Basically means like friend to the end, basically.
Well, that was an aspect though that made me kind of, I don't know if it's the second or third episode, but when they're coming back after they just witnessed like something so traumatic, like, you know, these people have they're desperate and they've probably had hard lives, but I doubt that they've witnessed something that horrific. And then they come back and they're like, let's be in teams. Let's be friends. Yay. Let's go. I mean, you
need to.
That made me go, what? Like, why are you getting all excited and making friends and making teams? But I you know, thinking about it more, and, you know, they show you this, that like, you know, their lives outside of the game are so desperate and so miserable that they'd rather risk it. But that was one thing that sort of took me out of it early on. I was like, really? Like, why would you be... Wouldn't you be just sitting there just like...
Yeah, just in shell
like, just like trying to absorb, like, oh my God, I'm going to probably die tomorrow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, and just like people's like heads exploding, flashing in their heads. Like that would be traumatic. Like that. Like, and they come back from it and they're like, yeah, what's your name? Like, I would just what?
I think part of it kind of speaks to like, I think that we as humans have... I think we'd be surprised with ourselves when we get into a very
true.
That's what I was thinking
situation.
The whole time.
I was like, there's probably an element of like, you can't imagine how horrific this would be to experience, and it would scar you for life. But I bet there's also a part of you that would be unlocked if you were caught in a situation like that, that you would rise to the occasion, or you would find some kind of courage or some kind of craziness within you that would be unleashed.
Think about even the experience of watching the show. Your mentality changes. So like the red light, green light, when you're first watching it, you're like, oh my God, right? You're like, oh my God. They're like, everyone's dying. You're like freaked out. And then by like the second or third game, you're like, yep, dead. Yep. Like, and you watch the characters, they're going through the same journey. Like they're just focused on their task.
Yeah.
And then you hear gunshots behind them.
I think that's why I eased up from that mentality was like, you know, the first game, I think I was just like, oh my God, because I knew nothing about the show. I didn't know that it was like this violent or anything. And so I was like, what?
Well, I could tell right from the beginning, like I didn't know anything about the show, but when that first scene where it says like, and if you were kicked out of the ring, like you were dead or something, and you know, they're saying like, oh, kids game, you're dead. But I was like, okay, this is going to be there's going to be real deaths happening.
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of was just taking it in for what it was. I mean, someone compared it to Hunger Games, so I was like, oh, it's probably gonna there's going to be like some sort of like, modern gladiator aspect to it, or whatever. But I didn't expect it to be so insane, like so quickly. But yeah, that's why I was kind of like, after you experience that once, then they're already like being like buddy. But it's like, yeah, I mean, they've left because they were so freaked out, and then they've chosen to come back, and these are the people who are, probably closest to them in some way, because they've lived through something insane together. And they're all kind of like, they have that like camaraderie, and it is natural for people to like form teams and everything. Like,
it's just like, well, that's the thing that interests me so much about this show, was the whole thing of like human nature and what we do under like certain conditions, and we do things that are like unthinkable to us now, but if we're in that situation, that's why the character that like I thought was so interesting was the priest. If you guys remember the priest, who was constantly like
praying.
He was praying. He was
he a
constantly,
priest, or was he just like hyper religious?
I think
I think he was a priest, because the girl who was like friends with Sabyok, the girl, was like, keep praying because there's nobody there, and like called him a priest and made fun of him and stuff.
I think she's, well, anyways.
She might have just been making a joke.
Maybe, but
I know
this religious man, this religious character, I thought he was very interesting because he was almost like telling himself a lie constantly to like keep his sanity going, because he's just like doing things that are constantly like against everything he believes in. He's like letting people die, letting people suffer,
he's
killing people. He's constantly like justifying his actions, which I thought was so interesting, because he's just constantly like telling himself this lie just to make himself feel better by the end of it. But yeah, characters like that interest me.
Sabyok was also an awesome character.
Oh yeah,
she was like pretty much the only one who was in the game. You're like, she actually has a good reason for being here, and like you really wanted her
to
win. And oh my gosh, the scene where Ji-hoon goes to get help for her because she's dying, and he turns around and has cut her throat. That probably was like the moment in the whole thing that like just made my stomach drop like the most.
Well, I think that was so interesting about 456 was just that even though he is a total buffoon and like just can't self-sabotage to the nth degree, can't get out of his own way, constantly, every time he has money, he gambles it away or does something stupid. He had like this purity to him, and he
was very childlike.
Yeah, he never compromised like the goodness in his heart, and like so many different times he expressed that like, despite, because he had very good reasons for being there, like he wanted to get his daughter back, he wanted to get his mom taken care of with her surgeries, and then of course mountains of debt as well. He had very valiant reasons for wanting to get the money, and yet he still at any turn was willing to help the weaker, the lesser, like put life and death situations, putting that on the line just for the sake of like including the others. And then like right down to the wire when it was the three of them and then the two of them, he still was like, I'll sacrifice the money, just we'll get out of here. We can still, you know what I mean?
A human life was never worth all of that.
46 billion was not worth ultimately, like let's
I think I did the math, it equaled out to be like $130 million or something. I forget what it was.
That was one of the hard things about the show for me. It's like I didn't know what the conversion rate was. I was like, wait, that's like a ton of money. Like, I think how much is that?
Billions of dollars? I think, like, oh wait, no, it's
like 100 million. Yeah, and I think like the whole slapping scene with the game and the train. I think like it was like $8 per round or something like that. Yeah, or like a 20. It was like 20.
Yeah, something like that.
I know they said 10,000. I was like, what?
But
the exchange rate is.
I do think that
so 0.00085 dollars is one.
That's I'm not.
That's wild. That's wild.
So
I gotta go to Korea.
So what?
It's gonna be.
I'm rich in Korea.
$1 million. So that makes like 1 million Korean won is $850.
Holy poop!
Inflation.
I'm going there.
So
Imagine the food I could buy with all that.
I love Korean food. Oh my god.
Well, here's what's interesting, or I wonder how different the show and the experience of the show would be if you had a better working understanding of like Korean culture.
Well, I was thinking about like Parasite and just like the rich versus poor and just like the equality themes we hear a lot of just in general. And I'm sure that there's a disparity there with like, I think just anywhere, but I'm kind of unfamiliar with like Korean culture to know enough about like, is there a larger disparity than even in America? That seems
actually like that and Parasite, and I saw another Korean film, The Burning, that was also very much about like rich and poor, like classes.
Yeah,
and I
because that's definitely the theme.
And
right?
what's
did you get the
Old Boy?
Old Boy is it's a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, it
the
kind
original,
of includes
the Korean Old Boy.
Yeah. It kind of includes some similar themes.
Does it?
Seems to be a major theme of the disparity of wealth.
Not being able to have access to education. It's like a big thing there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the role of women was really interesting in the show. Clearly, in Korean culture, women are still treated much more second class than they are in the U.S. Like they got no respect in that show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're very, very submissive. Like the scene where, you know, the group of bullies, the tough guy group, they decide to double up on the meals. Remember that?
Yeah.
And they all like four guys cut in front of this one lady, and they're like, excuse me. And she just kind of like doesn't even bat an eye. And then the one woman that cuts in front of her, then she says something.
Oh yeah.
And it just goes to show that like as a woman, she only felt comfortable speaking up when another woman stepped in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But that same scene could be in an American show, and I honestly wouldn't be like
I don't know
surprised
about
by
that.
that.
I don't know
don't
about
think
that.
So?
No.
I think let's put it this way. I think that if in an American show you could get by with it playing out the same way, but you also wouldn't be surprised if she called out the guys.
Sure.
I think in a Korean show you would be surprised if she called out the guys. You see what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
So
sure.
and that was like kind of throughout like the women, the way that they were treated, the way they're very submissive, kind of afterthoughts.
Yeah.
Was interesting to see. And and again, without a working understanding of the culture, I'm kind of just guessing at the way things are. But even like when he the gift for his daughter ended up being that little lighter gun. Remember?
Oh yeah.
And he was like trying to scramble to come up with a reason for why he got her that. He's like, well, you know, like women can even join the army now, and we're not. When you're older, we're not going to be seeing the same kinds of inequalities we're seeing now. So, and she was just like, okay, Dad.
Maybe I should hold on to it for you. She's like, Mom's not gonna like.
Yeah, she's like, Mom's gonna be pissed if I bring this home. Yeah.
I think we should we need to make sure we get to talking about the marble episode.
Oh yeah, that's
I
its own
thought we
thing.
talked about. Well, hold on. Was there any aspects of the show? I brought up maybe one or two aspects that I feel like didn't work. Was there any aspects that didn't work?
I would just say
because we all clearly enjoyed it somewhat.
Again, and
I have one.
The one thing I'll say is that in the beginning, and I think you and I talked about it, Mike, it was like, this is like a live action anime. Like the way that the acting was in the beginning.
You didn't like that? I loved that.
Well,
no,
it was just so over the top in the beginning, the first episode, that I'm like, what is this? Is this like a joke?
Yeah. If you're not used to like
Oh,
Japanese
the weird
or
thing.
Korean like acting,
Yeah, and then it kind of found its lane, found its groove.
I went
later.
from
like,
thinking
everyone's screaming like all the time.
I went from thinking that it was like very cartoony to then by the end literally thinking this is happening. I was like, this if this can happen, and I mean like look at the Harvey Weinstein thing, like if that's happening.
Or you mean Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein?
No, Harvey Weinstein, the producer.
No, I am thinking about Jeffrey Epstein,
so
the guy with the island.
They both.
Yeah, that's
They
Epstein.
both did
They both did real bad things.
Similarly.
Both terrible
They were both
people.
having a whole lot of fun.
And I'm sure Weinstein was on Epstein's island.
Yeah. No, a surprising amount of people were on that
Probably.
island. Have gone multiple
Probably.
times. It's crazy that they still have
Well, it
careers.
just shows you what money can do.
Well, so that's the thing. I went from thinking that, oh yeah, similar to you, is like, this is like an anime. It's kind of silly. Even like the top-down shots of like the pastel staircases and everything. I'm like, this is a cartoon.
Yeah.
And then by the end, I was like literally feeling like freaked out that there's not maybe to this extent, this level of detail, and maybe not like as elaborate and like, you know, visually stimulating, maybe, and probably not even this like fun. Right? Like, but a version of something like this could very well happen right now. Like it could.
Absolutely.
And so that means it probably is.
Absolutely.
It's just probably a lot less fun to watch.
Well, piggybacking off of that, the line where the girls in the marble game are talking about their lives because they got time to kill.
Yeah.
Obviously, literally.
Man,
That was a
that
great
scene.
That was a great scene.
Literally, it's such a good scene.
That whole was. We'll get. I want to hear your thing that didn't work about the show, and then I want to talk about the marble game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you going to say
Crap.
something, Film?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Did that make you lose it?
Forgot
I'm
it,
sorry.
though. That's okay.
I just wanted
So
to.
It's okay.
the thing I
It's okay,
think
Cody.
really didn't work was bringing in the VIPs and like those actors, like the American
Oh
guys.
yeah, Luke did not like
I
that.
was
one.
like, because their dialogue, it was clearly like written by someone who's like English is their second language, and like
Yeah.
it sounded like
I
the
know.
dubbed version of
To
the
me,
show.
it went back to feeling
I
like an
know.
anime there.
Yeah,
I started feeling like
This guy
have
kills
I-
me.
Have I just have I just been listening to Korean so long that English sounds weird?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
there wasn't anything inherently like that was bad dialogue, but there was a few lines where I was just like, oh no, it's just this idea could be could come across in a different language, and I could read it and I wouldn't second guess it. But
Yes.
hearing them say it, it felt like,
Yeah.
I am rich and powerful,
Yeah.
and you're dumb, and it
Yeah,
was just like,
As a thought exercise, because I think we all felt the same thing. As a thought exercise, what director would you want to bring in for just that scene? Just those characters.
Michael Bay.
Nicholas Winding Refn.
Not Woody Allen. Who said Woody Allen?
It'd be like, can you imagine the VIPs are like, oh, I want to. What should I bet on? I don't know. I'm thinking like they're all just these really quirky. No, but it was just so bad. Like their dialogue is like just like these one-liners kind of
I'm
thrown.
gonna pick number
It's like,
69.
oh, yeah.
It's like,
oh, good choice.
I mean, I guess it was heavy-handed, but it was sort of like, look how childish this, this caliber of person is in this situation, which, I would believe. Like, sometimes you ever hear someone say something so stupid in life, just regular life, that you're like, I could never have written that down. It's like, so if I read that in a book, I'd be like, no one says that because it's so stupid.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like that does happen, but like,
Yeah.
it did take me out of it slightly.
But I wish that they had like still kept the VIPs kind of behind the veil, a little bit, like still see them and maybe like, but kept it darker and not like have us have like full scenes where we're like hearing all their banter and conversation.
I'm gonna bring up Stanley Kubrick because there was so much about the show that was like literally right out of like a Kubrick book. So many of the shots, like the way they were like framed, I'm like, this guy is definitely influenced by Kubrick. But the feeling that you get, and even after seeing it multiple times, the feeling you get in like your chest and stomach when you watch Eyes Wide Shut and they go into the mansion, this didn't have that. Like that feeling of like
sinister.
just like you're getting sucked into hell, and like this, but this is real and it exists, and this is the people do things like this, and there's a lot underneath the surface, a lot of mystery, and these are people who are powerful who you would, if you knew their names, it would make you sick. Like this feeling of just like ominous, like, oh God, and there's almost like this religious aspect to it, which it's like this brooding darkness and mysterious vibe with the masks and everything that like I feel, I don't know. I mean, some people think, I remember showing a friend Eyes Wide Shut and he thought it was like, that scene was kind of like silly, but like for the first time I saw that, I was like, oh my God. Like I was so invested and so into it. And that's why I said Nicholas Winding Refn too, because I feel like he will capture this sort of like underbelly of like violent people in a way that's very mysterious and very slow and methodical and very scary.
Yeah, I think
that wasn't there.
Yeah, I think
they weren't scary.
You wanted to feel more scared of them because who could be perpetrating such horrific stuff for their own pleasure? It has to be some kind of like evil of all evil.
I mean, isn't that the point? Is that they're just dumb? They're just dumb,
it seemed
rich
like,
people that just like.
It's not like Illuminati, like drink or like QAnon, like drinking baby's blood type of evil running the world. It's just like bored. It's depraved.
They're so rich that they've become so detached from
the regular people.
Human
But I feel like
values.
it would have been more interesting if they were very intelligent and just like really committed to this, like the ideology of the game.
Well,
and like,
but in their defense, in the show's defense, they did paint a different. Like it worked for the world that they created because the very creation of the game sounded pretty ad hoc. Like the old guy was like, we were bored. We were bored and we were sick of not having fun because we're so rich that we got together and said, what would be fun?
Which actually is satisfying.
That
that you wanted more than that?
I wanted a little bit more. Like,
it wasn't like they have no more. There's no deeper. They're not like, this isn't global manipulation. There's no governments involved. It's just like, and
I don't need that.
And then when Ji-Hyung was asking the frontman, like, who are you and why do you do this? He's just like, you bet on horses, we bet on you. You're our horse.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like.
The horse explanation was good.
That actually was satisfying because I was glad that they didn't make it into a bigger like global conspiracy. It was more like a bunch of powerful people were just like, what would be fun?
Yeah.
We can do anything.
Yeah.
What do you want to do for fun?
But it didn't it didn't even seem that fun. I'm like, what? Like, why is it fun to just go, like, it's like you and like 5 dudes and you're just like sitting on a couch.
It's not fun to you, Luke. Don't yuck someone else's
But
yum.
like, I feel like they could have done more to make it seem
Luke,
like very.
If you're wearing a 3-piece silk suit and a golden mask and people are serving you food, I could get into it.
Oh my
Just like
naked,
naked painted ladies who stay so
Were those
still.
Live?
They were
women, real people, or were they?
Those were real
live women, real people.
Because they were so still. That lady was just like.
Yeah.
I know they were all like draped over each other.
I will
like
say
statues.
I think more what I was feeling was the visuals didn't match the audio of those scenes because the visuals of them standing in a row that's like ominous. They're wearing these gold masks. It's very ornate and like creepy, like just very Stanley Kubrick vibes. It just didn't match because then they would talk to me like, where's the Doritos? And it's just like,
like at first when I saw the mask, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Right. But then as I heard them talking, when I was like, oh.
And then the scene in like the jungle room with like the painted naked ladies, and it's just very like very exotic, and then they're just like. Yeah, I've been betting on this. It's just like,
honestly, it's a little comforting to me to know that I guess like in that world, I know it's fake. In that world, that it's just like dumb. Man people like dumb man
it just
people.
Sounded like a middle schooler's writing that.
I wonder how much of it was just that or how much of it was intentional. I think it did work in the world that they had created. But I think it is kind of cool to think or funny to think like they were wearing masks and they were like doing the things because that's just like what you do. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like to them,
it's just a part of the experience.
Yeah. It's like, it's just like, it's like what you're supposed to do.
It's like a costume party.
Yeah. It's like what you're supposed to do. Like when you get together with your secret society, you just gotta wear masks or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
each other.
To them, it's casual. And also like, this is far from their first time engaging in this.
Yeah.
So like to them, it's like, oh, we're just going to go down and you're going to watch the game tonight. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It would have been interesting to see a newcomer come in. Like, how does somebody get started in watching those things? Like, I would have liked to see
like
that.
now that you're sitting at the same table with us, let me tell you what we do over the weekend.
Now that you have $10 billion, we will let you know.
There's a threshold.
Also kind of aligned with some of this, like I felt like the game that didn't work as like it worked the least was that one, the panel, the bridge one, because it wasn't connected to any kind of like childhood game that I know of, like, or maybe there's one in Korean culture. I don't think, but they didn't even reference it or anything.
They were just like, what's that?
Point.
And it wasn't much of like a game. It was just like a chance thing.
Kids definitely don't have just like tempered glass laying around to play with.
I agree with you.
Well,
but I will say it did not take away from my investment in the scene.
No.
But the bridge that they had a visual representation of it.
Yeah.
Isn't that basically like a childhood game where you're like moving pieces and like it's sort of like did you ever play like Break the Ice? And you have this little hammer, and you're like hitting it, and like you want just one piece to go at a time, but you might hit too many, or you just get one hit, and you might not actually get. It reminded me of something like that. I don't know if that was a real toy or a real game.
Here's the question:
maybe.
What game could be in Squid Game if they have a next season? What game would you want to see in the?
That's a good question.
Simon Says.
I feel like some version of like a giant game of Jenga or something would work.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Twister.
Maybe like Red Rover. Or
Red Rover.
Oh my gosh.
They could do some violent stuff with Red Rover. Red Rover is pretty inherently violent. How many kids were like separating their shoulders and breaking their arms?
I mean, I'm kind of simple. I think just like a classic game of tag, but like if you actually tag the person, they like explode.
Yeah. Call me old fashioned, but I think an exploding game of tag would be pretty cool.
Well, like just playing tag was really fun.
Yeah,
but like the stakes would be really high.
I like to keep it simple.
Hide and seek.
Capture the flag. Maybe.
Capture the flag.
Catch the hide and seek. Yeah.
Dodgeball. Huge game of dodgeball where everyone.
But it's with knives,
bombs. It's pretty silly. Like it is a pretty silly.
Well, the
show.
other thing we don't know is, maybe just this one rendition of the game was childhood themed. Maybe they mix it up every year. Maybe
next year it's basketball.
No, but you know what I mean. Like these people could just come up with any
games.
Luke's volunteering for that.
It may not always even be games per se. It may just be like scenarios that they need to get themselves out of. Like it's just for their own entertainment, so they can put them into any kind of situation they want.
But isn't the old man his whole thing was his like session with like his childhood?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it had to be childhood themed every year that they did it. It could be. I don't know.
Cody wants to be on this council.
I'm just
maybe we switch it up sometime.
And I'm just saying like
maybe like a cowboy theme this year.
and it could be that he chose for this particular year to be childhood because of his death, his impending death, and he wanted to be a part of it.
Right. I mean, it would make sense because when they show how many decades they've been doing it, it's like how many kids games you got,
Yeah.
I think it always ends with the Squid Game. That's my
maybe.
theory.
I mean, they're calling it that. They're calling the whole experience that. So
are they?
Yeah, when one of the binders he opens, I think it says the Squid Game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it does.
That's interesting.
Right.
Did you know that the creator was trying to make the show for like over 10 years and everyone kept turning him down?
Everyone kept turning it down, and it was supposed to be a movie.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a movie.
Oh, it would have been like way too.
The same story.
It would have been jam-packed if it was a movie.
The same story, I guess, was with Queen's Gambit. Like that guy was trying to make that. Like Netflix keeps making these like lost projects where it's like the people just show up like all in rags with like their binders. Their binder with their story. It's like, I've given up on ever making this, but it's dusty under my bed.
Ends up being a huge.
Well,
what do you think about it?
The insatiable appetite for new content is creating a context where overlooked projects that really should have been made a long time ago get to finally be made.
Yeah.
Because so much of the stuff that's being made is crap, but every now and then you get you get something that's really special.
Oh, do you know that the doll in Squid Game is a real like thing that the kids at school in Korea are like taught? So there's like a boy and a girl, and that girl robot doll is like something that they're like taught in school. I don't know what it represents.
I wonder how many of those little things there are
we're just
that we'll
right over our heads.
We'll never get.
Yeah, there's some insider knowledge.
But that robot that they used in the first episode is actually a robot that's like it's like a statue guard for like a museum in Korea or something, and they borrowed it for the show.
Wow.
Oh.
I thought that was sick.
That's crazy.
That is sick.
Well, any final thoughts?
Poor.
We still didn't talk about the marble episode.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
dude.
my gosh. Okay, real quick.
When he betrays Ali, I was.
Oh my god. I wanted to jump into the TV and choke that man out. I knew exactly what he was doing when he was like doing this weird thing. It's like, oh,
Did you feel-
He was so
I mean-
pathetic. He was like begging and like.
Did you feel any level of hope that what he was
But Ollie
proposing was going to
kind
work,
of naive.
or did you
No.
think right from the get he's manipulating?
I knew exactly what he was doing as soon as he lost.
No, he was. Yeah, I knew he was manipulating
Yeah.
him. But Ollie was kind of like naive, dude. Like,
Of course he was.
Who
he was,
cares? That doesn't mean he
he
deserved
was-
to die.
Well, yeah, but that's
no,
the
but he was
whole-
kind of like, dude, like.
Get back to the human nature thing. Like that's the whole
I
thing. It's
know.
like Ali was too naive to survive that game. Like
Too nice.
But also, he thought
Too
that
trusting.
was his friend, though.
I know.
You know, it's
He was
not.
a- he was
it's
a
not like
sweet
he was
guy.
like constantly
He was a sweet guy.
like being manipulative to him, and Ollie was like, "Oh yeah, this man is."
Also,
Yeah.
he
Trading-
gave him his
portraying
bus fare early in the show. He made a
Yes.
connection.
Yeah, they had
and he
a-
was saying like
Exactly.
we can work together and win this game. And I when he said that I was like they totally can.
Yes.
And I kind of wanted them to because I still thought Sang-woo was like
Yeah,
a
pretty
good
good
dude.
guy.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, what else is there to
Ridiculous.
say about that episode? I mean, there's a lot, but
I mean, each one of the pairings was just fascinating.
Oh, it was so good, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah,
and it just that twist where it's like, and now you're gonna play against the person that you paired up.
Oh my gosh.
Berlin's
I know.
covering her ears. You shouldn't be here right
I
now.
know.
And in the end, everybody.
But when the two girls were talking and they're like, I loved that they just were like, yeah, we're just gonna talk for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Each
We're both gonna die.
individual story was so different and was so
Yeah.
well done. And then you see the like gang boss like also just unraveling and stuff, and like to see his character like so desperate, and he's in a situation where he can't just use his toughness and his bronze to like defeat the other
Yeah.
person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was satisfying.
Yeah.
It was really
Yeah.
satisfying. They're like throwing the marble in the hole, which is like,
Yeah.
it's
And
so
he kind of
funny.
he won on like a little technicality. Like the other
Yeah, it
guy
was
hit
like a
his marble in.
Stupid
Yeah.
technicality.
It made me think of
It's horrible.
because I at the school that I grew up in, there were quite a few Korean kids there, and I had lots of Korean kids Korean friends growing up, and they always had this game where they had like a little bouncy ball and the little jacks.
Yeah, Jacks.
Yeah, a little jack. But they like, or they had that, and they had like some other version with like these cubes as well. And they, like and it just made me think of that, where they used to always play games like that. And
Yeah.
I was imagining, but it was funny to see like all the different types of marble games they had.
It was kind of
wasn't
interesting
aware
how
of.
they gave them the freedom to just come up with whatever version they wanted to play.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't think about till now was the fact that the old man, allowed 456 to live, to continue on, and you thought he got killed, and obviously he didn't. So it's like he wasn't so committed to experiencing the game to his death, the old man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if he really was, he would have died in the game and like died doing what he loved or whatever. But he was just like, oh, I'll dip my toe in and experience it. And then once it gets too real, I'll just back
Well,
out.
dying
Peace
isn't that
out.
fun.
Yeah,
He just wanted to have fun.
Right. So it was just interesting to think like he's just kind of like,
He's the total cheater. He like made the
He's a
rules and then
coward.
he's breaking the rules.
He's a
What a cheater.
coward in that sense.
it's
Yeah.
just weird
He's
because
committed to
it's
it.
weird because you kind of learn to care about the old man, and then you realize that he doesn't have much depth. Like
Well, his big thing at the end too is he is looking outside, seeing that old man, and the way he views the world and humanity is very different than our main character, and that's like I think that was sort of like the final point is this guy basically views humanity as just like
Lost cause.
everyone's
Yeah.
right, everyone's out for number one. He's like, how much you want to bet that no one's gonna save this
Yeah.
poor old
Yeah.
man who's just like drunk on the side of the road, and that guy is like, he's like, no, like someone's gonna stop, like someone's gonna. Like,
I knew
take care of
someone
him."
was gonna stop him.
I thought that scene was kind of a missed opportunity because when that happened, I was like, he's gonna go out there.
I thought too that he was gonna like
Helping. I was
run
like,
down and help the guy.
Is that like, yeah, I don't know. Like he'd still win. He would win the bet because the bet was like somebody's got to go out and help him. But
yeah,
was
but
like,
I guess that
that'd
would
be-
have been like a technicality, and that wasn't really like they were
No,
playing.
but
a
that
game,
would have been, that was like the
you
point
know?
of the whole show was like Ki-hoon was sort of like almost above the game the whole time, and that he was helping other people constantly.
Yeah.
And this would be the ultimate him
Oh sure, yeah.
showing that like
Yeah.
that no, you don't win. Like this
Yeah.
this view you have of humanity doesn't win.
But
I can
I
step
think it
in.
was more the bet of like like let's both like stand back and watch what happens. You know, like what do we both kind of think humanity is? It's not really a winning a bet if you choose to do it anyway. It's more like, what do you believe about human nature?
Right.
You know.
Yeah. But what do you believe about human nature is like.
So then what are you going to act on? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something that you just like think about. It's an idea. It's something that you enact.
You live out. Yeah. No, it's a good point. That would have been a powerful.
Maybe it would have been
moment.
a little cheesy, but I thought it would have been cool.
Yeah. You know what I thought didn't work?
What?
Was the red hair.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy that.
I thought it was funny. I just thought it was just
so
like, oh,
weird.
he just it's so out of character. He just needs to do something.
It had no
different.
precedent at all.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, what a weird
was a little silly.
decision.
It was silly.
I think it was like him getting out of his funk, like making a choice to.
Oh yeah, I know what it was.
Yeah.
But
The red. It was.
Symbolically,
Have you seen all the memes?
Goodness.
There are and like so many memes with this.
Yeah,
this show.
that's why I was like, I have to start watching this, or else I'm gonna spoil it for myself because there's so many out there.
There was a there was a meme just like somebody. It was just a photo from the back, like on a plane, from the back of someone's head. It's just like the red hair. It's like
oh, he got on the plane.
Like he got on the plane. Like it's just like, oh, I guess it was alternate ending or something.
Yeah,
it killed me.
Oh my
funny.
gosh! I also saw one where someone. A picture of that maze that they're in playing the marbles, and then it's Gi-hun like walking up. He's like so sad, and then it's a picture of the old man and like all of the guards like around, just like laughing like so hard.
So I know we got to wrap, but just one kind of ending question: does this? Maybe you guys are more well versed in like non-American entertainment, anyways. But like, does this kind of open you up to the idea of like checking out more?
yes.
Shows and movies from Asia.
Oh, I love watching foreign films.
Yeah,
but I don't watch a lot of modern foreign films or foreign shows. So that feels more interesting to me.
or maybe the better question is: do you think now more mainstream we're going to start seeing more things like this?
This and Parasite, like America was so into both of those things.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more and more Korean films.
Yeah.
Like
well, it's
specifically
more,
Korean, but probably open up to other places as well.
it's more like popular to like animes now. Like before,
Yeah,
it was
sure.
kind of like weird if someone like said that they liked.
Is it
anime.
popular to say animes?
Is it? I don't know. I don't know.
How many animes do you want?
I don't know what the.
How many animes do you watch?
Get your animes here.
I don't know what the lingo
Step
is.
right up.
It's singular because it's a way of life, Falin.
No,
I'm sorry, anime.
I never. No,
Don't ever do that again.
I'm so sorry.
Just give me a hard time. Oh man, yeah. No, I think that platforms like Netflix is making that kind of maybe more normalized. I don't
Yeah.
know, but yeah, it was interesting to see what happened with Parasite and all of that.
Yes.
But well, I guess that's our final thoughts. This concludes our broadcast day. So you guys would recommend it, in other words.
Yes.
Yeah, I really.
If someone's listened to this whole thing, they haven't seen it yet, then it's.
Well, we did do a podcast. We have done podcasts about things we didn't enjoy, and we just have a lot to say.
Yes.
This we enjoyed,
Right.
had a lot to say.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
some things that doesn't work. Do you rate films at all in like from like 1 to 10 or at 5 stars or anything, like even in your head? Do you think
I can't even.
I do like 1 to 10 in my? Oh, that's one thing. And another thing that didn't work is that freaking
No, I loved it.
chorale
You
song.
didn't like
You
that
didn't like
song?
this?
No, it
I
was
loved
fine.
it.
It's just it happened like 50 times in the show, and after a while, I was like, enough. We get it.
It's like
You could connect to the thing.
I thought I was.
We're not supposed to play more than like 20 seconds of something.
Copyright.
That started by like season or episode like 6 or so. That's that song. I was like, all right, you got to find a new thing.
Well, it's like it's like in the Hunger Games when they have that that sound they make when they're about to start the games. It's like signifying that they're starting a new game. You know
No,
what I mean?
the thing that signified the new
What?
game was Blue
Yeah.
Danube music.
What?
Blue
that-
Danube, yeah.
Blue Dadubu.
That was another Stanley Kubrick nod because that song became
That
saying?
so
classical
famous.
song that would start playing when it's
In
like
2001:
and then
Space
the
Odyssey.
lady's voice would come on and say,
Oh
"Hey,
no,
everything."
I think it was like to signify. I meant to the audience.
Oh, I see.
That's what I mean.
Okay. That's interesting. All right, well we're gonna start a whole new thing then. But would you rate it? Would you rate it anything from like 1 to 10?
Oh, I mean,
I had a great experience watching it, so 10.
yeah, I mean, I get
Wow, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10, everybody.
Depends on what you're looking for, but I give it at least like a 9. Like,
Whoa, 9 out of 10.
9.5.
Whoa. Yeah, I was going to say like 8, so yeah. But you know.
Mike needed to hear everybody, so his could be a little lower.
No, I'm not trying to rate it low. I was everything that I said, if it would be a 10 probably. If it was, there was just like a few little things where I was just like, it just bumped down slightly.
I mean, let's give Squid Game some time. If it comes out with more seasons, we'll see.
Yeah,
but as a standalone experience, it was one of the most like intense, enjoyable things.
It took the world by storm.
If Breaking Bad,
people really like I've been freaking out, like
crazy.
bashing their heads against the wall.
Can you imagine making something like that?
Squid! Like people are really enjoying it.
Everyone's Halloween costumes this year is
Oh
all gonna
my
be.
god!
I know.
I just want to become a squid.
You're seeing nothing but those green jumpsuits. Like
That's a whole other topic.
Guys,
Yeah,
just
like
squid sales for pets have skyrocketed. Squid attacks are up 350%.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe.
Yeah, go watch the Green Knight episode because we're so good at just talking about stuff that we watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we should wrap.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Goodbye.